having a business can feel, like I said, so overwhelming, but it can also be something that like can carry you in a way through life you didn't expect.
Jess, welcome to Business by the Books.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here. Before we hit record, I was just telling you, I am just very inspired by your journey. And the goal of this is to just break down entrepreneurship. It can be very lonely. So what's it like to run a business and to use our financials to help guide our business decisions and not be so alone on this journey? So let's start off with a little bit of background. Tell us about yourself and what led you to start your business.
Sure. I'm Jess. I am the owner of Five Dot Post, or a greeting card and stationery and gift company, expanding into new categories lately. I started my business in 2018. So I've been in business about 6 years. I had just gotten married, and my husband at the time, we found out pretty quickly after our wedding, about 2 months, that he had stage 4 esophageal cancer. We were 26, so that was mind blowing. Obviously rocked our world, and pretty much everything had to change really quickly. We were both actors. We were both traveling a lot, and we had to be near our hospitals and focus on his treatment and his recovery and his everything. So I stopped what I was doing, which was musical theater performing. I did not go to school for anything related to what I'm doing now.
Yeah, love that.
I started working at a gift shop that was just a couple blocks away from our house, so that I could be able to be with him when I needed to be and just still make money, because we were still at the time, 26, figuring things out, living in New York City. It's expensive. And I started working at that gift shop, and it was kind of my first glimpse into entrepreneurship in general. I had never really thought of, I mean, I guess like in a way, theater and being an actor, you kind of have to like push yourself and sell yourself. It kind of feels like a little bit entrepreneurial.
But you're selling yourself and not
exactly.
like a product or a service. Understood. Yeah.
Exactly. So I feel like I kind of had like an entrepreneurial spirit, but I'd never really considered owning a business in any way. And while I was at the gift shop, or was working there, I had the idea to design cancer cards that were for people in our position, which was like, we were 26. Like I said, we were young. We were doing our best to like fight with humor, because it's so heavy and so scary that if you can't laugh about it, it can be too much. So like the cards that I was seeing just like out in the world for cancer just felt so heavy. They felt like they were for a different generation, like our grandparents who go through things like this. I didn't have any peers that were going through what we were going through. And I had started sharing on social media about what we were going through, and was able to connect with other young adults who were going through cancer or who were caregivers. And I kind of talked to them about this idea, and I was like, do you think this would resonate with people? Like having a funny, almost irreverent, lighthearted cancer card in order to like break the ice and send support at the same time. And they were positive, like it was a positive reaction. They were like, I think this would really resonate. I would love to send those. And I felt like the biggest hurdle for us at the time, and I have been victim to this, or have been the one doing this, but it's like when you have someone going through something, it can feel like you don't want to say the wrong thing. So you end up saying nothing at all. And I wanted to just try to bridge that gap with young adult cancer. So I was like, if we can make a joke, if we can break the ice, and then inside the card, you can write how you're feeling and how you're there to support them. And anyway, so that was kind of like the idea. And all I thought I was going to do was start an Etsy shop. And I did that, and it just kind of took off. And we had a couple like smaller news sites hear about us just through like social media and on Etsy. And that kind of gave me a little more traction and opportunity to kind of see what could happen with this. And I found out pretty quickly, I didn't just like the design, like didn't just love designing the cards and like doing that part. It was the behind the scenes and like learning how to run a business. Yes. Yeah. I just became like addicted to it. It felt kind of like, I don't know, playing The Sims or like playing a game. It was like, what can I tweak that will then change this?
That's the opposite side of most creatives, though.
100%.
So it's really interesting that you fell in love with that part of it.
And it's like, and when I've like spoken to other people who are designers or creatives, that part is the harder, the more challenging part. Yeah. And I think that did help me grow more quickly, because that part was so fun to me that I would just spend hours like going through KPIs and seeing like how I could work on my SEO and like all of that stuff. And it's like that, I don't know why, but that part like lights me up just as much as the creative part. And yeah, so I went from Etsy to like a personal website, and then a couple years in started doing wholesale. And that's kind of where I'm at today. I'm scaling the wholesale section of my business and hopefully have a lot of things planned for this year. But yeah, that's kind of the origin of everything.
So do you still use television as part of your marketing strategy? Because I think it's really interesting. That's kind of an old school strategy that I don't think very many people are tapping into their local communities. Are you continuing to use that?
So the thing is that I've never sought that out. It's all happened organically. So we also like in 2022, I just moved to California. I connected with Bobby, who did Bobby's Favorite Things on Hoda's show. It's Jenna and Hoda at the time. And they decided to do my cards as like one of her picks of the week. And that really catapulted things. I had like a random like kind of spot on GMA, but like I don't know. I've thought about it too. I've never like put in the energy to like seek that out, but it's so effective when it happened organically that I'm like, I think there has to be benefit to at least giving it a go. So it's definitely on my list of things to try.
Things to do. Yeah. What was the moment as you were starting your business that you were like, yes, this is working. Like I can do this and actually pay myself and make a living from this?
It happened around 2020. So I didn't know what was going to happen along with a lot of other
Mhm.
entrepreneurs with the business. I technically was teaching English online as like a supplement. And I was assuming I was going to have to fall back on that because business would, be light during COVID. But it ended up that I think people were so saturated with online and Zoom and stuff that they wanted something tangible. And greeting cards, at least for me, really took off. And I had a couple kind of like COVID support cards like go like a little bit viral. And it ended up like by the end of that year, I had my first like $20,000 sales month, November and December back to back. And I was like, that was beyond my wildest dreams. When I first started it, I was like, if I can make $2,000 a month, and I wasn't even thinking about taxes, about cost of goods. Like this was just like
Yeah.
my early brain, like revenue, $2,000 a month. And I was like, I can pay the majority of our rent. Like this will be amazing. I can help Tommy free up some of his time so he can rest more. Like my goal was like, I just wanted to create space for him to heal and go through his treatments. And I was like, whatever I can do to make that happen, amazing. But then when that happened, I was like, this can be something a lot bigger than I was thinking. And clearly, like what I'm doing is resonating. And I just had that spark of like, I want to see how far this can go. And that was kind of the beginning. And it wasn't like since then I had the back to back like amazing months. It was
Right.
like
Yes.
a blip. And then I had to figure out how to get back to that. And now like that's consistent, but it's like, yeah, that was kind of the beginning where I was like, well, anything's possible in entrepreneurship.
You mentioned you were focusing at the time on revenue, sales in,
Mm-hmm.
not even thinking about taxes or cost of goods sold. When did you start to realize that you needed to look at the full financial picture and not just revenue?
My sister, she went to school for finance and she was my neighbor and she was starting to ask some of these questions. So it did happen pretty quickly. Like it was like within the first year that I was like tracking everything in a spreadsheet myself. And you learn pretty quickly that, you make $100, you're not keeping $100. And it's
Right.
like, um, I do think that I like hired her as my first bookkeeper. That was the first thing I ever hired or outsourced. And I think that has still been like the most important thing for me personally, because it's not like where I thrive and I don't get excited about it. So it's not like the other kind of parts of the business where it's like I'll pour into it and I would rather see the reports and know like how it's going. But yeah, it was really around that. And then also that really not that year, but the next tax year, I had a huge tax payment that I
Yeah.
wasn't prepared for. And I was able to make it work, but it was like kind of a wake up call where I was like, we have to get in the mindset of this is not your profit. So it was it was a learning curve and I'm still going through it. It's like learning now about cash flow shifts and like especially with these much larger orders that like it's just like it's been a constant learning curve, but I do feel like getting the team members and the support to help through that has been like hugely beneficial.
When you look at the information now, like when you look at your financial statements, when you look at the snapshot that we send you, how do you process that information differently now versus the beginning? Like, how are you able to use that information to manage your business? I think there's so much buzz around know your numbers, and people are like, okay, but like, what does that even mean? What do I actually do with the information?
Yeah, well, I feel like most recently, the things I'm looking at the most are my operations expenses and my cost of goods because I'm at a healthy, I feel like great where my business is, but it's just like those tweaks can make such a huge difference that it's like I'm really have been diving into my numbers lately. So, like, especially with deciding how I want to market, if I want to have more marketing budget, do I have that as an option? I've started doing a lot more wholesale marketing, and that I couldn't have made that decision without knowing where I was at profit wise. And same with, again, with the new thing I've been getting into are like these big box retailers who are ordering just huge amounts of cards that are nothing like I was doing before. And like being able to say, like, can I cover these expenses before? Because a lot of those, they pay you net 60, net 90,
It is
and I have to pay
crazy.
my
Yes.
retailers net 30. I mean, not my retailers, my suppliers net 30, and my fulfillment team net 30. So it's like, I have to be able to see like at least 90 days out, like, can I say yes to this? And we've always been able to make it work, but it's like, if I didn't, that could get dicey. So yeah, that's kind of been like the big thing right now, especially also deciding if I can expand into other product categories. When I was early in my business, I went really wide and tried to do a bunch of different things and quickly learned that that wasn't profitable for me. So I scaled way back and was like, I do this thing well, I'm only doing this thing. And now I'm slowly, with more knowledge and thought, I'm trying to expand into more categories. And yeah, and those numbers are really important.
I love that you had that lesson of going wide, then going back narrow. And I think there's a wisdom in being in business after some time that you can say, okay, I'm ready to start to slowly recast my net. But it's very different than the way you do it when you first start a business.
Right. Because you just want to say, like, oh, I can make something for everyone and that will make me more money because then everyone's my customer. And it's just,
Right.
that is not how it works.
Yeah. What advice would you give to another business owner who might be overwhelmed, especially with their numbers, but I think in entrepreneurship in general?
I feel like the biggest thing, I mean, for sure, the biggest shift that I made that took away overwhelm was the battle between myself thinking, like, if I can do it for free, that's more profitable than me outsourcing it. And that was not true for me. Like, I was processing and packing every single order myself for years. I hired an assistant who helped me with that, but it was still a huge amount of time that I was spending on it. But I kept saying, I don't need a fulfillment center. I don't need, like, I can do this myself. I'm still able to do it myself. And it took me getting to a point where I got an order that I was like, I actually cannot do this myself. I'm about to have to say no to like probably $50,000 of revenue because I'm being like stubborn. And I thought I was being financially smart. I was like, I'm saving money by not having this other expense because I can do it. And it's like, no, you're a bottleneck. And realizing that and deciding to get a little uncomfy for a minute while I hired that fulfillment center and that team, that now I work, I don't know, a tenth of the amount that I was working before. I'm making more money. I'm able to focus on scaling the business. I'm able to do all of the things I wasn't able to do while I was saving money by doing it myself. So I'd say, like, be smart, of course, and like talk to your money people when thinking about hiring. But that made all of the difference for me, was just kind of the getting out of the I can do it myself because
Yeah.
it's free mindset.
Because your time really isn't free. You know,
No, it's not.
we're probably our most expensive staff, really, when we think about
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Before we continue, a quick favor. If you found value in this show and want us to keep growing with bigger guests and more strategies, please rate and review on Apple or Spotify. It really helps. Thanks for listening.
All right. What's next for you as the listeners follow along in your journey? Kind of what's the next goal? Where do you see yourself over the next year?
Over the next year, I'm really hoping again to scale wholesale. So my business was direct to consumer, probably like 80% for years, which is pretty uncommon for like a product-based business, at least the kinds in my greeting card space. And I really have tried to ramp up wholesale the last couple of years. And this year, I have a lot of big things that are in the works. I just went to a trade show a couple of weeks ago and made some connections that I think could be pretty crazy. So it's like majority right now, my retailers were in over 550 retail stores, but a lot of them are brick and mortar, like smaller home and gift boutiques. And that really is like my bread and butter. And I love working with that level of retailers because I can like meet them and know them and like know who's ordering and
see it in the community.
And now that I'm doing more big box things, like I'm TJ Maxx and Home Goods and Target and like that kind of thing, it's such a different process. And I'm trying to learn how to love it in the same way, where it's like, it's so different, but still so exciting. And also, I don't know, it's like, there's just so much opportunity there. And I'm really excited to see where I can take that and try to balance all of the plates.
Yeah. I love that you said that, find the same level of excitement in that. And it's different, but it can still be making a mark in our communities and still have that same attachment to our end client.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Any closing thoughts or words of wisdom to not even anybody earlier in their journey? It can even just be the next person who's thinking about scaling and just getting excited about the future.
I feel like this goes back a little bit to my origin story, but I do feel like having a business can feel, like I said, so overwhelming, but it can also be something that like can carry you in a way through life you didn't expect, where like when I ended up losing my husband in 2021, I had the option to close everything down and just like, I didn't think I'd had the tools to be able to move through that season whilst running the business. But there are just so many ways that you can set your business up to be able to support you through tough moments. And I was somehow able to do that. Of course, like had to make things shift. I had to extend processing times. I had to get help. But if I hadn't created the business before in a way that felt good and felt sustainable and felt supportive to me and of me, I would not have been able to keep it going through that, and not only keep it going, but grow through that season. And then when I was ready, pick it back up and take it to the next place. So I would say, as you're building it, just build it in the way that feels right now. And don't just say like, oh, I'll fix that down the line, or I'll use more of my, or less of my time down the line. Like just try to make it the end goal as much as you can now, so that then it can grow in a sustainable way, as opposed to feeling like it'll just one day you'll wake up and it'll feel good. Just grow it in a way that feels good.
I think we tend to think about we'll get there rather than letting like there be right now and enjoying that journey of building the business. We think we'll enjoy it later. Like let's enjoy it now and have a healthy, sustainable, profitable business that supports our life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's a beautiful way to end it. I appreciate that. Where can listeners learn more about you and pick up a few cards?
For sure. So yeah, we're now in every state except for Maine. So if any Maine retail shops are listening, I'm looking for Maine.
I'm in Ohio. Can't help you.
Yeah, perfect. We're good. But you can find us at five.post, fivedotpost.com, and then at five.post on Instagram. That's where I am mostly social media wise. And yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll link all of that in the show notes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Danielle.
If you are a business owner who needs a money team, I invite you to go to kickstartaccountinginc.com or click the link in the show notes and come and book a discovery call. The Kickstart Accounting Inc. team and I are here to be a resource for you on your entrepreneurial journey. We want to take bookkeeping off of your plate and help arm you with the information you need to grow and thrive in your business. Don't wait, click the link below and let's get started.